Okay, I think that's probably enough time. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. Thank you for joining us today at the latest in our series of webinars about the QS ranking process. So today we're going to be looking at specifically at data submission and guidelines. So this is going to be sort of a practical deep dive into how to submit data for the QS rankings and also our surveys. And we'll provide you all the information you need about how to use our platforms. We won't really be going into any methodology points today. We will have other webinars that focus on that. Um, so this is really just about the data submission cycle. Just a couple of points before we get going. You'll see in your Zoom toolbar, there should be a Q&A box. So if you have any questions for us as you go along, we have members of our team ready to answer those questions there. So please put them in the Q&A box rather than the comments box. And we'll endeavour to answer all of them as we go along. If there's any questions that we don't get to during the course of the session, we'll try to take those away and get you answers afterwards. And you can obviously always email us at rankings@qs.com. Secondly, at the end of the webinar, there will be a short survey that pops up on your screen that just asks you for feedback on the session. We'd really appreciate if you can fill that in. It just helps us make sure that we're providing the right information for you and that we can cater these sessions for your needs. And with all that being said, let's make a start. So first of all, just to introduce ourselves, so my name is Sam Duke. I'm a ranking specialist here at QS. So I'm part of the frameworks team and we're responsible basically for the evolution and promotion of the rankings. And I'm joined here today by my colleague Yuming, who I'll let introduce herself.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar. So I'm Yu Ming, the Institutional Support Manager based in Kuala Lumpur. My team is basically taking care of from the data collection process, data validation process, as well as answering your questions on the support desk. Welcome to today's webinar.
And we also have a number of our colleagues from the institutional support team and the data team in the chat today, so they'll be answering any questions you put in the Q&A box as we go along. So just to begin with, we just wanted to remind you really of the QS mission, which you can see on the screen. So students at the heart of everything that we do here. So since QS was first founded over 30 years ago, what you can see on the screen has been our mission, so empowering motivated people around the world to fulfill their potential by fostering international mobility, educational achievement, and career development. And we know this is a shared mission with educators and higher education staff across the globe. Next, just a bit more detail on the scope of what we do here at QS. So rankings is actually just one small part of the broader scene here. And you can see on the screen just a snapshot of the type of work we do. So we work with governments, employers, students, as well as universities and business schools. And we look at a whole range of different areas, including reputation, global engagement, student recruitment, employability, digital innovation, and sustainability. So next, just a very quick reminder of the rankings that we have here at QS. So our rankings projects are basically split into two main areas. We have our World University Ranking Suite, and you can see the projects that sit under that. And then we have our graduate management education rankings, which we'll get to in a second. So today we're going to be mainly focusing on data submission around the World University Rankings. So we have the World University Rankings themselves, which is our flagship global university ranking. We also have the subject rankings, which look at subject areas specifically. And just a quick note on that, in the subject rankings, we look at basically broad academic disciplines. So when we have a ranking that's say in mathematics, we're not ranking individual programs there, we're looking at all the programs and the whole offering that a university has in that space. We also have our regional rankings. So these are designed specifically to reflect the individual characteristics of a region. So we have a number coming out around this time of year. So we have Latin America and the Caribbean, the Arab region, and Asia. We have Europe early next year, and we also have Sub-Saharan Africa coming out for the first time. We also have best student cities. So universities don't have to submit any data for the best student cities ranking. That's done entirely with the data that we have here at QS, but it forms part of the broader World University Rankings offering. And finally, we have sustainability, which is our ranking of university sustainability elements. It's linked closely to the UN Sustainability Development Goals, and that comes out in November. So just a reminder, there is the full calendar for you. And as mentioned, we will be bringing out the Sub-Saharan African ranking for the first time, and it will join this cycle of projects soon. So next, graduate management education. So we're not actually going to be covering this in much detail today, so I'll only give a brief overview of it. But this is basically our rankings that focus on postgraduate studies, essentially an MBA program. So we have a number of different projects there. Data for this submitted by business schools is submitted through a separate platform. And we will be doing a separate webinar around the data submission process for this. But just a reminder that these are the other projects that we have. And this is the calendar for GME. So we've actually just released the Global MBA Business Masters and Online MBA rankings. And then we have International Trade coming out soon. And then the next one in the cycle is Executive MBA next April. So next we just wanted to give a bit more detail as to why universities should take part in the process. So essentially we break this down into sort of 5 key areas that you can see on the screen here. So first of all, benchmarking. So rankings are obviously a great way to quickly compare overall performance or performance in certain areas to those institutions that are considered peers at a domestic, regional or global level. And if anyone attended our webinar yesterday where we looked at the new Holon IQ by QS platform, you'll be aware that there is like a sort of new and exciting ways of doing benchmarking with that new platform. If you haven't heard about this, there's details available online. If you go to the QS website, there's lots of information about what this new analytics platform is, but it is a whole new way of looking at rankings. Secondly, learn. So rankings allow users to identify institutions performing well in specific areas, providing best-in-class examples for strategic planning. And speaking of planning, that's the third reason we have down here. So we always say that rankings shouldn't dictate strategy, but they can be used as a guide to areas that institutions can focus on to improve performance. The fourth reason is market. So institutions can highlight their ranking achievements to students with our range of unique and secure digital badges and certificates, which we'll show you in a second. And the fifth reason, which is often overlooked, is just to celebrate your rankings achievements. So being ranked by QS is an achievement in itself. We don't include all institutions in the rankings. And those who do make the cut can consider themselves among the best institutions in the world. So next, just a reminder of the assets that you get access to as a ranked institution. So fact files go out before every project and are basically a record of the data that we have on the institution. And then we have digital badges and certificates, and these are basically assets that you can use to promote your ranking either online or in emails or on social media, or in the case of the certificates, you can also print them out for physical use. And then just another reason why being involved with QS is important. Here we just have the Google Trends from March 2020 to March 2025 tracked against our closest peers. And you can see that QS is really tracking quite far ahead, really across this whole period, with particularly large spikes around our ranking launches. So being involved with QS gives you access to a vast audience, not just of students, but of other institutions and higher education sector colleagues. So it's a compelling reason to be involved in the whole ranking process. So next is a note about MyQS. Hopefully a lot of people on this call will already be familiar with this platform, but MyQS is going to be essentially the sort of the home of rankings data going forward. So essentially this is a platform that allows you to look at historical data, gain insights through data visualizations, get access to the ranking assets that we've just shown you, including fact files, badges and certificates, and also track who sees and shares your data. And we will also be adding in the future data submission into the MyQS platform. So ultimately it will become a central hub for everything that you do around rankings with MyQS. There'll be more details coming out about the data submission aspect of that when we're ready to launch. So for now, we are still using the Hub platform, which we'll explain to you in a bit, but just worth bearing in mind that that is coming as well. Next, just a couple of quick screenshots to show you the type of information you can get. So this is an example of the just simple data visualizations showing ranking performance over time. And here, this is just showing you the asset library where you can get access to things like fact files, badges, and certificates all in one place. And then just a reminder to sign up here. So it's worth checking whether anyone in your institution has already signed up. Multiple users can sign up with the same institution, that's fine. And if you haven't signed up already, then you can use the QR code or just visit the website and we can get you set up from there. So now we're going to take more of a deep dive into our current data submission platform, which is QS Hub. And for this section, I'm going to hand over to Yuming.
Right. Thanks, Sam. All right. Now I would like to share with you and guide you through the process for data submission through hubs and some tips on a successful data upload. So first of all, let us look together at the data collection timeline. So as we know, I think most of you already received the invitation from us to submit the data or the contact list for the survey. First, the period starts from September until February for the institution data as well. And for the survey contact list, it begins in September until January. So as you know, for the contact list submission, there will be two windows. The first window starts from September until November, end of November, and then the second window begins at the beginning of December until January. So please take note on the timeline there. And next we have the reputation survey, which begins in December until March. Same that, and there will be the advantages if you provide us the contact list earlier within the window one, which the universities the contact will have will receive one additional reminders compared to those that submit in Windows 2. And then the third one is the sustainability data. For the QS sustainability rankings, we collect the additional data related to environmental impact, social impact, governance, and the data collection period starts in January until April. So for more details about the timeline, specific timeline, you may refer to our support page. Up next page, please, Sam. Thank you. So why we would encourage universities to submit data directly to us? First is, of course, to ensure greater accuracy of data about your institution. The secondly is about the source of academic and employer nominations, where at this point you are encouraged to submit or provide us the contact from both academic and employers. Then we have the third point is about receive rankings updates and allocates. And lastly is to create a data footprint for greater data analysis. So as you may know, QS Hub is the data submission platform for the world, regional, as well as for the sustainability rankings. It allows institutions to provide us the data for our research and ensure that we are using the most up-to-date data for analysis. So in order to access your account, you may log into Hub to the URL below, or you may use the QR code below. So, to access QS Hub, you can log in to our QS Hub platform, or all you need is your email and your password. If you do not have the access to the account, you may contact our team members at support.qs.com. So, as mentioned earlier, QS Hub is a dedicated platform for the world regional sustainability rankings. And for Modin, it will be for the GME rankings, the business school rankings. So now let us look together what type of data that you can actually submit through the platform. So if the data can be split into four main groups. The first group is the most commonly known, the students and faculty data, where the number of full-time, part-time, and students of your institution, as well as the faculty data are required for this section. And you can provide the data on any employment statistics that will be captured from a student survey. Secondly, we have the programs and fees section, which covers the full-time, part-time programs that your institution offers, which includes the number of offers, continuation, retention, complete rates, and some other information on the non-degree programs, which will be explained in later. Next is about the sustainability data. So the data for this part is for the reflecting your efforts on the sustainability. It covers the environmental sustainability, education and research, equality, knowledge exchange, health and well-being, and good governance. And last list is about the academic and employer contact, which we have emphasized previously. It covers the contact information data for our global academic and employer reputation survey. So the contact list that you submit to us will be used for us to contact those individuals to participate in our survey campaign. So here are the list of data that you can submit. So you can see that we have the breakdown of students, undergraduate sections, postgraduate sections, overall student sections, and faculty sections over here. So in each sections here, you can see it has the breakdown of the total number of students in each category in international students, international sections. And for the student section, we have included exchange number of students for both inbound and outbound. And overall students section here, you can see that we have covered the total international distance learning as well as the exchange number of students for both inbound, outbound, the male, female, or other students, as well as the place of origins. So for these sections, I would like to remind you that please make sure that the total number submitted under this overall section is the sum of the undergraduate and the postgraduate section. And one more reminder is on the place of origin. So over here, for this indicator, it is slightly different from the other indicators, at which for this indicator, you are required to submit the evidence where we will need to provide us the breakdown of number of students from each location. And please make sure that the total of the number of students in this evidence is equal to the total number of international students that you have submitted. Then we have the faculty section, which covers the total number of faculty, staff, the international faculty staff, the staff with PhD, as well as male, female, and other faculty staff. So we have always requested universities to provide us the data in FTE, which means the full-time equivalent. It is the total number of full-time personnel or staff or students that would like to take to meet the commitments currently met by both full-time and part-time personnel. So if there's no part-time personnel or students or staff, then the FTE should be equal to the number of headcounts. So in QS, we have a set of formula that we would recommend to use to fill in the data. So the FTE should be calculated by the sum of full-time plus 1/3 of the part-time number of headcounts. Besides those statistical numbers, you can also submit the following data in QS Hub. So under the programs area, we have the total. You can select the total number of undergraduate degree programs, the online programs, postgraduate programs, and as listed over here. So we would encourage universities to fill up this area to ensure that your institutions will be evaluated for all those subjects that you are offering in our subject rankings. Besides that, there is also the tuition fee section. You can provide us with the data as well as the employment statistics. This employment statistics section, the data will be used in our rankings analysis as well. So even though some of those indicators listed over here might not be directly fit into our key indicators, but the data that you provide to us will help us to develop our rankings in future. So in this year, we have something slightly different. That is the annual report. If you have logged into our QS Hub platform, you might have noticed that there's this annual report requirement in the very beginning of the form. So what kind of data you can submit and why you should submit data, the annual report for it. First is submitting the annual report will definitely help us to speed up the data validation process because it will provide us with more insights or information in order for us to validate your data with, which means, in other words, it means you will probably get less queries from us on the data that you have submitted. If you have, you may have already submitted an annual report as evidence in probably other data fields, probably in sustainability rankings as well. So submitting the annual report is definitely a signifier of transparency and good governance of your institution data. So just now we have mentioned about submitting program data. So this is the screenshots of the subject that reflects on the programs that we would encourage you to provide us or fill in the data. So you should pick each subject area where you have at least one program. So and the program should also have at least 3 graduating cohorts, and a subject areas probably could have several programs within the same subject area. So you can also provide us with the details of the programs, and of course this, if you are providing us with data in this section, it will definitely help us to increase the data accuracy and help us to make sure that those subjects that you have offered will be evaluated or included in our sustainability rankings evaluation. So up next is, I will quickly go through with you how to submit data once you log into our QS Hub platform. So once you log into the QS Hub platform, you should navigate to the left panel, which you can find the institution tab in the menu. Then under the institution tab, you should navigate to statistics. Then over there in the statistics there, click on it, the data submission, and you will be able to see those rankings projects that you are currently subscribed to. And click on the relevant projects in order to open the form, or we call the data submission page. Then you can proceed to submit your data. So once you open up the form, you will be able to see all those data points displayed on your screen. So by clicking on the selected data point, the cell itself, the row itself will turn green and allow you to start input the relevant data. In case if you have data being submitted previously, it will show in the cell. So all you need to do is just to update those data accordingly. If the data has not changed from previous year, all you need to do is click on each data point and save to confirm that the data for the current year. So then up next, then you can save the data at any point as many times as you want. And the save button is available at the bottom right corner. So it is equivalent to the submit button because we have just to share with you, it is pretty common that we receive queries asking us, is the save button equivalent to the submit button? Yes, we would like to assure you, once you click on the save button, that means your data is being submitted. Okay, just now we have spoken about the left panel. Now let's move on. Look at what we have on the right panel. So on the right panel of the form, you can find there are 3 sections over here. You can find the definition, history, and message tab over here. So of course, the definition is the interpretation for each of the indicators that we are looking for, what type of data that what we are looking for. It will guide you through. And while the history section will show the previous data that you have submitted. And lastly, the message tab, it allows you to add messages and context on the data that you have provided. So in order to ensure that everything is in order and help us to make the process more efficient, we have set some rules. The first one is about the warning sign or the warning message that prompts you. If the system detects the data entered is entered incorrectly, it will issue the warning prompt message and it will highlight the relevant cell in yellow, which is shown on the right of the screen. So you can still save the data if there's a warning sign, but we would suggest to check before doing so. Up next is about the error message. So if there's error detected, if the system will highlight it in red, then in this case, you won't be able to save the data until you corrected the error. So there are two types of errors that are usually being flagged in the system. The first one is if the data is data entered is significantly different from the previous value, or the data entered in the system is wrongly calculated. So in this case, you are required to enter the justification message or explanatory notes in the message section. So it is very common that you can see all these four statuses in the system. So of course, it is very straightforward that accepted, that means the data is being accepted, that you will see a tick symbol for that indicator. For pending, that means the data, once it has been saved, the data will save as pending if it needs the further review or validation from the analyst. Our team members will validate or review the data as well as the justification or explanations that provided in the message tab before we proceed to accept the data. Then we have the query. So in this case, if we need further explanations or evidence on the data that you have submitted, then our team members will reach out to you through emails. And in this case, you will need to provide us the explanatory notes or explanation through emails or through the message tab in the hub form. And lastly, we have the reject status, which means if the proof that you have or evidence that you have provided does not meet our requirement, then the data point will be marked as rejected.
Thank you, Yiming.
Thanks.
So the only other thing I think to mention just about this is you'll note that we haven't really gone into detail around sustainability data. We will do a separate webinar about that because it's quite a complicated aspect of data submission, so it sort of requires its own session. So keep an eye out on qs.com and on our social media channels for when that webinar is coming up. I think actually last year's webinar is still live on the site, so if you do want to get a head start on that, if you visit qs.com and look for the webinars section, you might be able to find the data submission webinar on sustainability from last year, but we will be doing a fresh one. So next we want to talk about reputation surveys. So this is obviously quite a big part of what we do here. So our academic and employer surveys inform the academic and employer reputation indicators that are basically included in every QS project that we do. So every year we invite academics and employers from across the globe to participate and share their opinion via these surveys. And you can see some of the statistics here that we have for the last few years around the number of nominations received. So we actually did a whole sort of webinar session about the importance of reputation, why we measure reputation and what it means. But just to give you a sort of a snapshot, obviously reputation is an important factor that students consider when choosing a study destination. And reputation comes in many forms and also means different things to different people. So being seen as a good place to study by parents, peers and others has an impact on student decision making. So it's not just about the student's own opinion, it's about everything else as well. It's also a good measure of an institution's impact on the wider world and how influential its research and alumni and graduates are. And as we said, we measure reputation in two ways: by getting the views of academics and employers in two separate surveys, which we put out on an annual basis. So just to reinforce that message, here is some statistics from the recent International Student Survey. So you can see here we asked what factors are most important when choosing a university, and you can see that a good reputation for my chosen subject, almost 50% of respondents said that that was a priority when making study decisions, and the overall reputation was 37% of students said that. So 70% overall cite either subject reputation or over reputation as a priority when choosing a university. So it shows how important this factor is and how important reputation is when considering the sort of the rankings. So finally, we just wanted to point out that relationships build reputation. So when it comes to selecting survey respondents, and we'll go into that in the next few slides about how you can do that, it's important to remember the message that we have, that we always try to repeat, that the surveys and indicators, the data producers should reflect the good work that you're doing and not be seen as an isolated exercise. So your survey contacts should reflect the relationships your institution has built. And if you put time into developing and maintaining those relationships, then reputation will follow. So the key message here really is that when it comes to looking at reputation, when it comes to submitting contacts, it shouldn't really be about just trying to improve in the indicators. Your reputation should be reflected through the surveys just in the state that it's in. So if you have good reputation, then that should be reflected. So you should think of it more as like a holistic exercise rather than something that's directly linked to the rankings. So in terms of just the practical steps of submitting contacts for the academic and employer surveys, so obviously every contact that you submit, assuming that it's within the number limit, will be contacted for the surveys. And this is how you can actually submit those. So in the Hub platform again, if you select survey lists from the statistics section, set the type of contacts you're uploading, so either academic or employer, download the relevant template, which you can fill in. Once you've filled in your contacts on that template, you can then upload it back into the system. And then once you've confirmed via the tick box you've obtained consent, then you'll be able to save those contacts down. They will then come through to us and can go into the system for us to send the survey to. So in terms of the contact lists themselves, so i.e. the data that you actually put on the Excels to submit to us. So contact lists we always ask be provided in our predefined spreadsheet template and uploaded to QS Hub. This just makes the whole processing of data quicker and easier and makes sure there's no delay in getting the surveys out there. So there's a limit to 400 contacts per survey, so that's 400 academic contacts and then 400 employer survey contacts. As we say, please use the predefined template because that does speed up the process. Submit email addresses in English characters only. Again, this is a processing thing. It just means that we can get the emails out quickly and easily. And a very important point, you must see your contact's consent using the content emails templates, which are available on support.qs.com. Consent is very, very important. We can't contact people if we don't have an assurance from you that you have sought their consent to pass on their details. Otherwise, we get into all sorts of trouble with data protection and GDPR in particular. So please make sure that you have provided, you have got consent from your contacts, so they will be expecting the survey email. It's also good practice just so that the contacts are aware that this is happening. So it's a good opportunity when you're reaching out to those contacts to say, hey, we're going to put are you happy for us to put your details down? You'll receive a survey from QS, and it can all be part of the same process. So next, just a reminder of what information you can submit. So we asked for basically four main groupings: personal info, contact information, professional information, and subject information for academic contacts. So all of these are sort of important in their own way. First of us to sort of determine who we're contacting, and also then to see whether it matches up with the survey responses that we receive. We also have something called the Survey Sign-Up Facility. So this allows individuals who consent to provide us with their own details. We do recommend that you only use this if you are an institution whose policies don't allow sharing third-party data. So if providing contact lists is difficult or goes against the institution's own policies, then you can use the survey sign-up facility. So essentially, this is somewhere where your contacts can sign up themselves and effectively give their consent that way, rather than you sending their details to us and us contacting them. So you can use our email template again, which is available on our support pages. And this just basically is an email inviting them to register on the sign-up facility. At that point, it's then up to them whether they actually do decide to register or not. The number of individual contacts is capped at 400 in the same way that the survey contact lists are. So essentially how this works is that we will send a notification once. If you get 350 of your contacts signing up, once we get to that point, we'll send you a notification basically saying or asking that you don't ask anyone else to sign up, because at that point we can assume that it'll get up to 400. And if it goes over 400, then they won't be able to sign up. So we always just send a bit of a warning when we're getting up towards the threshold. Next, just a note on communications. So as mentioned, for data protection reasons, you must seek consent before sending their contact details into us. This is very important. We can't stress this enough. And in terms of the invitations for the survey, so these are typically sent out between February and March. As mentioned earlier, we do sort of have these two windows now for data submission. So some survey emails are sent out earlier if the contacts come in earlier, but the general window is between February and March. And each contact receives a maximum of 3 emails from the address on the screen there. So basically, if we don't receive a response after 3 emails, we don't carry on contacting the individual because we assume at that point that they're not interested in taking part. Finally, in terms of the survey send out process, we just have a few quick points around best practice. So you should always prioritize using professional email addresses. We get asked all the time, can we include Gmail addresses? Can we include Outlook addresses? If you provide those email addresses, we will send with the survey out to those contacts, but there's no guarantee that they will actually receive it, and there's no guarantee that their responses will make it through our data validation process. Basically, our data validation is based on sort of data science. It's not a manual process. And if we receive an email that comes from a non-organizational email address or has other factors that look suspicious, then it might be taken out during the validation process. So to ensure that the survey responses are that the contacts are not only getting the survey, but that their survey response is being recorded, we really would strongly encourage you to use professional email addresses wherever possible. Secondly, obviously this is an obvious point, but please ensure there's no typo in the email addresses. That also includes leaving like stray commas or full stops or other sort of grammatical characters in there. This just slows up the whole process. If we have to send out the emails and then half of them bounce back because there's typos in them, it just takes longer to get the surveys out there. And finally, we would ask that if you ask your contacts to whitelist the rankings@qs.com email address, it just means that they're more likely to actually receive the survey, and it won't be the email won't be blocked by corporate firewalls or other security measures. So that just makes sure that everything can run smoothly. Next, just a quick note on the type of information that we asked for in the surveys. So these are sort of really the core sections. So we ask academic employers to nominate 10 institutions from their own country and territory or their own faculty area, which they believe are showing academic excellence. We also ask for the same information for international institutions, so institutions outside of their own location, and the number is 30 for that. We also ask for the institutions that are showing academic excellence in specific subject areas, and we also ask for top business schools if they have a relevant background for that. So just to finish off today, we've just got a few pointers around sort of other sort of QS services that we offer. So first of all, just a quick note on Reputation Manager. If you're not aware of this, this is basically a software as a service solution, which just allows you to sort of manage your contacts and reputation a bit more easily. If you want more details on this, you can go to the QS website, but there's just a few points here about how this can help you. So it helps you build and manage your overall network. It helps you in terms of gaining consent. So that whole process of what we're talking about for gaining consent to be able to contact the individuals. It also helps in terms of just actually curating the contact list as well. So there's a number of different functions that it can help with there. And on the next slide, we can just see, again, some of the challenges that institutions face and how the products can help with this. So as I say, if you do want more details on that, then please visit qs.com. You can find all about that there and request demos and so forth. So then just to finish up today, just a reminder of how to keep in touch with us here. So ranking launches obviously happen throughout the year. We have a number of regional rankings launching at the moment. We just launched our Global MBA and Business Masters and Online MBA rankings. And then sustainability is coming out later in the year. And when we do ranking launches, there's a whole host of content that goes out. So thought leadership pieces, analysis pieces, social media posts, and everything else. And obviously when the ranking launches do come out, if your institution is involved, it's a great opportunity to really leverage that by using your badges, your certificates, and anything else to really promote your rankings. So it's always worth being aware of the calendar and what's coming up. Next, just a note on webinars. So we do quite a lot of webinars. We do previews of each ranking before they come out. So I believe it's next week we've got a preview of the Arab region ranking. We also do webinars obviously like this, focusing on certain elements of the process. So we did a whole webinar about reputation and the importance of reputation, and you can still get access to the recording if you go to qs.com. And we also have, as mentioned earlier, we have some upcoming webinars around data submission for the graduate management education, the MBA rankings, and also for sustainability. Both of those subjects really require a webinar in and of themselves to cover everything we need to do there. So just keep an eye out on that address on the screen for all our upcoming webinars. You can also see webinars from other parts of the business as well. It's not just a rankings thing. So if you want to know what else QS is doing, if you want to know, for example, about Holland IQ, the analytics platform that we mentioned earlier, or other services that we do on other trends, then obviously visit the website there. And finally, just to mention LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is really our sort of main social media platform in terms of getting our voice out there. So both myself and my colleague Wesley from the Frameworks team put out fairly regular posts with bits of analysis from the rankings that we do. But we also obviously highlight when rankings are coming out and other announcements from QS. You can follow the QS account itself as well, and there's also a top universities account. So if you're across all of them, then you should be aware of all of the announcements and analysis that we provide. Quick reminder of our conference calendar. So obviously we're getting into the final quarter of the year. So most of these events have happened, but if we look, there's still a few that are happening in the final few months of the year. So the Higher Ed Summit in Americas in Buenos Aires is actually happening later this week. The Arab Forum is happening in the middle of October. We then have the Higher Ed Summit in Asia Pacific, which is one of our biggest events, and that's happening early November in Seoul, South Korea. There's the Eurasia Forum in Uzbekistan in late November, and then we have the Reimagine Education and Conference Awards in London in early December. So I think pretty much all of those conferences you can still sign up to. I think you can even still sign up to the Americas one if you're quick, if that's of interest. But all of that information can be found on our website or by scanning the QR code there. And events really and the conferences are a really good opportunity to meet colleagues and listen into some really fascinating sessions about where higher education is now and what the future for higher education is at the moment. Since I've joined QS, I've managed to go to a handful of these conferences, and you always come away with loads and loads of interesting stuff to think about. So they're well worth your time. And then finally, the final bit of promotion we're going to do is just around QS Insights magazine. So this is available. The easiest way to gain access to this either through the website or you can actually follow it on LinkedIn. And these are basically thought leadership articles, essays, interviews all around the higher education landscape more broadly. And they're always covering fascinating topics. They're not just focusing purely on sort of institution strategy. It's really looking at the sector much more broadly. So if you have a broader interest in where the sector is going, and again what the current state of the sector is, it's well worth your time to have a read of QS Insights. So that's everything from the formal part of the presentation today. We just put the details up there of the rankings team and the PR team. If you have further queries, you can also obviously ask. Send an email to rankings@qs.com if you have any queries, either about your own performance or questions about data submission, and we will endeavour to get back to you about those. In the final few minutes, if I just stop sharing the screen of this webinar, I think we're just going to check in with the team who have been answering questions in the Q&A box just to see if there's any general themes that we can provide more context on. Any sort of questions that have been coming up a lot, anything we didn't cover. So I don't know whether anyone can provide any thoughts on that.
Hello, Sen. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, so we have answered over 130 questions, and they still keep coming, so the public is very engaged with this webinar. And there are some common topics that I have noticed in those questions. One of them is we didn't really cover the GME rankings, the moving platform, but many questions were around if the data between QS Hub and Movie, they are the same data, if the institution needs to submit for both of the platforms or only for QS Hub. So the questions around the difference between submitting data for World University Rankings and GME rankings.
Yeah, okay. So basically the submitting data from the GME ranking. So some of the sections are the same, but obviously it's focused on the GME rankings are mainly focused around business schools. So for example, if you're a university that has its own business school, then the questions around, say, students and faculty will be related in the GME rankings process will be related just to that business school. So just the entity that's offering the MBA programs. The other questions that we ask in GME are slightly different. So there's more of a focus on things like employability, value for money, and things like this. So there's more of a focus on stuff like student surveys. So like the state of graduate employment and sort of salary increases and things like this. As we mentioned, we will be doing a sort of a separate webinar about this because it does sort of need the time to explain why that's different. But if you are just submitting to the World University Rankings, basically you don't have to worry about that. You don't need to submit anything through MoveIn. It's only if you're actually submitting data specifically for those GME rankings, so Global MBA, Business Masters, Online MBA, or Executive MBA. But if you do have further questions that's specifically about that, as say, you can join our webinar or just send us an email. We do also have on the support pages, we actually have a guide to the data submission for both the World University side and the GME side. So that'll give you a snapshot as well of the cycles and the platforms and so forth. I think there was also a question about the annual report. Yeah, so as Yuming mentioned earlier, this is a new thing that we're asking for this year. So in truth, we've actually, in a lot of the fields that we ask for, particularly on the sustainability side, actually, we often ask for evidence for certain things, and often that is in the form of an annual report. So it may well be that your institution is already submitting it anyway. But we just sort of formalised it on the World University side this year, and it's mainly just to try to streamline the process. So if you don't have a public-facing annual report, then you obviously won't be required to submit that. But annual reports often can contain a lot of the information that we ask for in the data submission process, and it's a very simple and easy way for us to validate the data that's being submitted. So if you've been through the data submission process before, you'll know that we often, if there's been, say, a big change in certain data, as was mentioned earlier, then we will come back to you with a query to get more information on that, to make sure that we're reading the data correctly, that it's been inputted correctly. If we have an annual report, there's also basically mirroring those changes that we're seeing in the data fields, then it may save us, it saves us time in terms of having to query their data, and it saves you time from having to answer that query as well. And also, if it's a publicly facing annual report, then in theory there shouldn't really be any sort of issue in providing it to us because it is made available to the public. So hopefully it's not going to be a particularly onerous task to provide that report, and it will hopefully save everyone time as we go through the process. If you have further questions, obviously feel free to ask. Okay, was there anything else that came up in terms of topics?
There is also many questions around the consent to be asked from the contacts. So basically, many people are asking about if the contacts are from outside the European Union or the UK, do they still need to ask for consent, or this only applies for contacts or institutions within Europe?
So we're getting to the thorny issue of GDPR now, aren't we? So
Yes.
basically, you should seek consent wherever they are, because the data protection rules exist all over the world, but also GDPR is wide ranging. It's not just related to it's basically related to sort of the processing of data anywhere in the world if it's related to the EU. So GDPR in some ways is a bit of a red herring. Like we wouldn't focus on GDPR specifically, but just to say that like for data protection rules in general, we need consent. So wherever they are in the world, you will need to seek consent from them to send the details. That's the easiest way to put it, I think.
If we still have for some, at least for a couple of topics, one is very quick, but some people asked if they need to pay for a fee to using MyQS, QS Hub, or to participate in the rankings.
So no, there's a simple answer there. No, none of these products, services, or anything to do with the rankings involves fees. So it's all free. The only thing that where there are sort of additional costs is if, for example, you want to use the analytics platform. So as mentioned earlier, we have a new HolonIQ by QS platform, which allows you to take a deeper dive not only into rankings data, but into lots of other data related to the higher education sector. That's a separate product. For that, there's obviously a cost, but everything to do with the rankings. So seeing the rankings, submitting the data, seeing your historical data in MyQS, it's all for free. So there's no cost involved.
And the only other question that I saw here a lot is about the data submission windows. So some people didn't understand the two windows, or if it was only one window for submitting data.
Okay, so we do have there's more information about this on the support page, but basically this is just there is essentially there's one final deadline for taking part in there's one final deadline basically for taking part in the rankings. But what we've introduced essentially what we introduced last year was sort of these two windows for submitting contacts, which just allows people, if they want to submit early, it means that, so in the case of survey contacts, it just means that we can get the surveys out earlier, which means there's a longer period of time for people to respond to the surveys. So basically, if you submit your contacts by, I think, the end of November is the first window, then we can start sending out those survey emails in December as opposed to in the new year. So if you submit your contacts later than that, if you submit your contacts in the new year, that's absolutely fine. So the final deadline, which is, to remind myself, so the final deadline is the actual sort of final deadline. So if you submit contacts any time before that, then we will send the emails out to your contacts. So January 31st. So if you submit by January 31st, all of your contacts will get contacted. It's just if you submit earlier, then we will send out the emails to your contacts earlier, which just gives them more time to respond. So I don't know if I explained that very clearly, but needless to say, there's a final deadline, but there's like an early deadline, which if you send your contacts before that, your contacts will get contacted earlier, and just gives a bit more of a longer window to make sure that they respond in time. But if that was too garbled an explanation, please visit support.qs.com and you can find the full details around the surveys there. Okay. I think if there's nothing else, again, if there were any outstanding Q&A questions, we will take them away and answer them after the session, but hopefully the team managed to answer everything as we went along. Obviously, we won't always cover everything that you want to know about, so please email us at rankings@qs.com. We'll attempt to answer any questions you have. And as I say, keep an eye out for the upcoming webinars that we've got coming out for rankings previews and also further ones around data collection for both GME and sustainability. So thank you everyone for attending today. We hope you found it useful. Just a reminder, there will be a feedback survey popping up in a second when we finish the webinar. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.